Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, we're going to talk about Filipino stereotypes. They say stereotypes exist for a reason. Usually they have a kernel of truth in them. If they didn't, they wouldn't get formed in the first place. So some of these stereotypes, I have some notes here, are true. Some are somewhat true. Some are just completely false. And I have about 8 here, and I'm going to try to either somewhat agree, or I'll try my best to debunk some of them because I don't think they are true. All right, we'll start with the first one. This one is somewhat controversial. Filipinos eat dog meat. All right, I had a coworker who asked me this question years ago. She was like, I heard that, Filipinos eat dogs. And I kind of like laugh it off. I'm like, what kind of documentary are you watching? Are you watching, what was the name of that guy? Andrew Zimmerman, Bizarre Foods. I'm like, okay, here's a story to this. Back in the day, we're talking about maybe 2 to 3 decades ago, there were some drunks, Filipino drunks who did this. And again, they're drunk, okay? In the Philippines, there's a thing called pulutan. I'm gonna try to put it here. It's basically the side dish or some type of snack. You're snacking on, you're eating while you're drinking. And that's, sometimes some of those drunks, they like meat, either pork, chicken, or some have eaten, dogs while drinking. Now, that is generally taboo in the Philippines. Some people, I actually, that same coworker was asking me like, do you guys go to your wet market and buy that there? I'm like, no. Like, what again, what documentary are you watching? This is not something that you can buy alongside pork, beef, or chicken. No, that's not true. You will never find dog meat in the in the Philippines. Okay? Okay, like what I said, back in the day there were some drunks who did that. But when they did that, it wasn't like it was a secret, okay? Nobody knew about that. Let's move on to the next one. Filipinos are uneducated. All right. I think this stereotype is often assumed by those who encounter Filipinos who don't speak English or speak very little English. I find this one somewhat unreasonable because personally, I don't think speaking English shouldn't be that doesn't necessarily equate to being intelligent. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. Some people can speak English very well because that's the language that they grow up, they grow up with. You could be really eloquent and really, be able to speak English really well, but not really smart. I don't think those two really equate. Um, that shouldn't really be the measure of intelligence. At least that's my personal opinion. But obviously, if English is not your native language, it does require a certain level of intelligence to learn another language, not just English, but another language in general. And most people don't realize that Filipinos in general, at least a majority of the ones I know, speak at least two languages. Filipino, which is mostly Tagalog, that's the national language of the Philippines, and then their native language. The Philippines has what, 7,100 islands, and these islands are like usually divided into like regions. So you have, region, I think back in the day, there's how many regions? I'm gonna have to put it here because I can't recall. I'm from region 5, that is the Bicol region. That region have several provinces, and that Bicolano dialect have different variations depending on what province you're from. So most Filipinos at least, speak Tagalog, which is the national language. Filipino, they call it. That's the official name of it. It's mainly Tagalog and then their native language, which for me, I actually speak 3 different languages in the Philippines. I speak Filipino or Tagalog, and then the Bicolano because that's where my father is from, and then Bisaya because my mom is from Bohol. So, I mean, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 200 dialects in the Philippines. But some people, they hear a Filipina who has very broken English and they think, oh, she's not very smart. That's not really right. I would have to debunk this. All right, the next one. All Filipinos share the same culture and tradition. Now, the same thing. The Philippines is an archipelago, has about 7,100 islands. Each of these islands have their own unique type of culture. I mean, there are certain cultures that we all share, like Bayanihan, for example, is a very good culture that we share. It's like basically means, everybody helping each other, especially when there's a time of need. And then the mano po, which is you bless, how we show respect to our elders. We bless their hand to show respect. But there's so many groups in the Philippines, like they call the indigenous groups in the Philippines, and they all have their own kind of unique culture. For example, again, my father is from the Bicol region. We have our own unique culture. The type of foods that we eat is very different. And then my mother is from Bisaya. She's Bisayas. She's from Bohol. They have their own very unique culture. It will also depend on the geography of the country. My father is more in inland. They have a little bit of a, somewhat of a different culture. And then you go to those areas where you have coastal areas. Okay, so here's number 4. Filipinos are all maids or nurses. Okay, not all, but there are a lot of Filipino maids and nurses. When it comes to maids, you have, yes, there is a lot of Filipino overseas Filipino workers in the Middle East and some parts of Asia, like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, even China. Nurses, yes, a lot of Filipinos who work in that profession. There's also a lot of Filipino teachers. Now, I think most people don't understand this, but here in the US, obviously, most people, not most, a lot of people can pursue whatever degree they want because there's really not like a push to like pursue certain degrees. But in the Philippines, because of the economic situation, most people are I'd say very smart when it comes to what degree they're gonna go for. Degrees that will 100% basically not really promise that 100% guarantee, that's the word, that you will get a good paying job. you know Degrees like education, anything on healthcare, because that's really needed. What else? Anything really on that service type of industry. We have a lot of men who pursue being a seaman, like seafarer, is that the word? Yes. There's also a lot of Filipinos who pursue degrees in hotel management, any type of degree that would guarantee a good paying job. Now, here in the US, there are some who would pursue things like arts, unless you're a really good artist. I mean, most Filipinos would think, what's the point? Psychology. I'm not saying those are bad degrees, but in the Philippines, they want a degree that would guarantee a good paying job, period, because of the economic situation. I almost feel like most people don't understand that. Here it's kind of like in the Philippines, that would be a luxury to just pursue whatever you want. Most Filipino parents would always advise, yeah, you can pursue that. You want to be a dancer, go ahead, be a dancer, but you got to finish nursing. You want to become like this, you got to pursue this first. You want to be a comedian, okay, finish your education degree. You know what I mean? Like, parents would allow you to pursue your, what do you call that? There's a term for it, right? They would allow you to pursue your passion, but they're also very practical. I think this is not just Filipino parents. This is Asian parents in general. Parents would allow you to pursue your passion, but they want you to have a solid fallback. If that doesn't work, then you can go back, become a nurse. All right, let's talk about this statement. Filipinos are all maids. That's not true. But yes, there are a lot of Filipino maids in the Middle East, in some parts of Asia. I don't necessarily see anything wrong with this. I would hear people say this when they want to offend you because they think that should be something offensive. Honestly, for me, a job is a job, okay? You should be proud if you have a job and you're doing your best in that job. Now, if you're lazy, you ain't got no job, you're just depending on other people to survive, you should be shameful. That's something to be ashamed of. But what's wrong with being a maid? And I think a lot of it too has to do with the personality of Filipinos. Filipinos are really good when it comes to types of jobs that provide service, types of jobs that you have to get along with other people. We just have that, most Filipinos have the personality of pakikisama, knowing how to get along with others. And that's why a lot of Filipinos again are in this type of industry. Hotel management, where you have to serve other people, where you have to get along with people, you have to provide customer service. Filipinos are good at that. And there are also some people who would say things like, oh, a lot of Filipinos are uneducated and are maids. Well, for some people, if for most who don't have an education, what other choice do you have but to get that kind of job? And again, I don't what's wrong with being a maid, okay? If you are doing your job again and you are doing what you can do to support yourself and your family, that's something to be proud of. All right, let's move on to the next one. The Philippines is a dangerous country. All right. I've heard of some foreigners say this, like, avoid the Philippines because it is like a hazard zone or a big danger zone. But most things you see on the news are usually blown out of proportion. Usually it's that kind of a news that's sensationalized. But of course, it doesn't really matter where you go. You have to be careful of certain places. I mean, you could be here in the United States and find places that you shouldn't really go to. I mean, actually, I have a story on that. When I first came here, of course, I was amazed with the highways, the infrastructure is amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, it's just so organized. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before. I mean, they're doing in some parts of Manila. They're also doing that. But when I first came here, one thing that amazed me are the highways. Like how amazing it is. How the infrastructure is just top notch. I would say, at least what I've seen. But then my husband also said, but I want you to see the other parts, the other side of the United States. Some of these areas that are like really bad. And I'm like, what? This is the US? I've never expected that. But so, I mean, it doesn't really matter where you go. There are some places in the Philippines that even Filipinos know that they shouldn't be going to. There are certain places where you have to avoid. But majority of the countries, I consider this to be safe. And when people say this, I think they're talking about certain parts of the Philippines, and that's understandable. Some parts of Mindanao you really shouldn't be going to. Even Filipinos don't really go there. So I guess, there's just that mindset. When people also tell their own stories and their own experiences, some people hear that one experience and they just think that's the whole country. That's not necessarily true. Some parts of the Philippines are very safe. There are certain areas you shouldn't go to. But I think, just to assume that the country in general is a dangerous country is false. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one, Filipinos are always late and procrastinators. All right, let's talk about this one. Being late. It depends on the event, okay? If it's like weddings, anything celebratory, is that the word? I would have to agree. That is true. So that's why if your wedding is at 9 in the morning, make sure you tell them it's 8 or, an hour early because people always come in late. There's that thing called Filipino time. Now, if we're talking about official business, like official business, like work, school, anything where they know they're gonna be reprimanded if they come in late, they always come on time. I worked in the Philippines before I came here, and I never had a coworker. Maybe there's one, and she got fired. Okay, she came in late a couple of times, but most Filipinos that I work with, they're always on time, especially if they know that they can't get away with that. Now, some would push it. They will try to see, oh, if it's like just an employee where you don't have to clock in. But if we're talking about companies, Filipinos are pretty good at following rules for as long as there has to be some type of disciplinary action if they don't follow the rules. I mean, you would notice that Filipinos here in the US are very good at following the rules. So, I mean, I guess the Philippines just have to, either the government or companies. I mean, when it comes to companies, again, there's no problem with that. They know they're going to get reprimanded. So, they're all on time. But if it's like anything with celebration, birthday parties, weddings, christenings, anything really, yeah, they're gonna be late. So make sure you give them an hour before. Tell them, oh, we're gonna have the party at 3, even though it's 5. Just be prepared. You don't, because yeah, it's gonna cause a mess. Filipinos are procrastinators. I guess this has to do with the manana habit. Like, yeah, we can do that later. Procrastinators, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Maybe not, okay, I can't generalize, but majority of people are like, there's this, it's just a different life as well. Okay, I'm gonna have to divide this. If you are in Manila, most people are a little bit like, there's that sense of we gotta do things now, kind of everything's a rush. But if we're talking about government thing, it doesn't matter where you go. It takes time to process anything. In the provinces, it's a very different vibe. It's very slow. Like people are just slow. Everything is so slow. So a lot of foreigners, this is like the biggest complaint. Like everything takes forever. If there's like a project, for example, if they're working on some type of like a road and they're getting that road paved, for example, it will take months before it gets done. 'Cause people just slow. It takes there's that Filipino time, not just being late, but the if you are in the provinces, it's a slow pace of life. So you're just gonna have to. You can't. I don't know if that will ever change. I don't know. I don't think it will ever change. So I'm gonna have to somewhat agree to this one. Maybe agree, not even somewhat. Yeah, it's true. There is that some Filipinos, most Filipinos, especially if they're not gonna be reprimanded, yeah, they're gonna come in late. They're gonna try. Procrastinators, yeah, majority of people I know are. This is the thing. A lot of these problems, because I would consider it a problem. When Filipinos come to the U.S., it's a completely different. Like they completely change, except for the parties, and if they know that the guests are gonna be all Filipino. But if they're going to like a party that they know they're gonna be Americans there, yeah, they don't really do that. It's different. They completely change when they come to the US. I guess that's the ability of Filipino to kind of, the flexibility, the ability to adapt to a new environment. But if you are in the Philippines, yes, yeah, the slow pace of life in the provinces, and then yeah, people just kind of like think, oh, mañana. Mañana means later, 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 later. They always try to postpone everything. All right, let's move on to the next one. Filipinos are all Catholic. Well, majority of Filipinos are Catholic, but there are so many other religions in the country. You have the Muslim population in the Mindanao area, and that's who practice Islam. And then we also have a lot of Chinese, so we have a lot of Buddhist Filipinos, and of course there is a big number of non-Catholic Christians, the Protestants. You've got Baptist, Methodist. I mean, Seventh Day Adventists. We have a lot of those in the Philippines. So it's a majority of Filipinos are Catholic, but the Philippines is not all Catholic. Okay, the last one. Filipinos have an absurd fondness for food. This is kind of funny. Karaoke, taking pictures, and rice. I can't like say no to this because all of these are true. Yes, Filipinos love to eat, okay? We just love food. Anything with rice, fried chicken. We like, I guess when it comes to food, as far as I can see, we're very close to um some Hispanic, yes, like Cubans. I love Cuban food. Their food is like for me it's like very similar, I guess, to the Filipino food. Soul food, the southern food, heavy and just not so healthy. Anything fried. Really. Yes, basketball. Yes, that is a big sport in the Philippines. Filipinos love to play basketball. Karaoke. I mean, I don't have to explain this. You know that Filipinos love to sing. Even if they can't sing, they will sing. Taking pictures. Some, not everybody. But yeah, majority do like to take pictures. And rice. Yeah, rice is life. I mean, Filipinos can't live without rice. Actually, this is missing something. Filipinos are also not really yeah, I guess obsessed with another sport, boxing. You know that when Manny Pacquiao had his fights years ago, the whole Philippines stopped. So all right, see you guys on my next video. Bye guys.